What if I told you that 90% of students fail passage analysis tests, not because they can't read or write about the story, but because they've never seen what a perfect passage analysis looks like? After 17 years of high school English teaching, I found that most students are writing in the dark. They have no model, no clear steps, and definitely no idea how different in-class test writing is from the AI assisted homework that they're used to doing at home. So today, I'm pulling back the curtain on exactly what teachers are looking for. And who am I to do that, you might ask? Well, I'm John, a 17-year high school English teacher who's now taking all of this wisdom, bringing it to you because I can literally solve every problem that can come up in a high school English classroom. So let's dive right in. So this video is actually number 2 on my passage analysis. And if you haven't seen part 1 where I go over the structure, I simply link it down in the description below. Click on that first and then dive right back in. So for passage analysis, the first thing you want to really do is annotate. And in this example here, I've got Macbeth, Act 1, Scene 7, when he's thinking about the assassination. And I don't want to type out everything that I did, but I'm going to show you what a good final annotation might look like. So the first thing you'll notice here is my first annotation is just simply about plot, that Macbeth is alone on stage thinking about Duncan. It's not really deep, but it allows me to set the stage and set the context for this quote. The second one's a little bit longer when he says, "'Tis done, twere then twere well overdone quickly if the assassination could trample up the consequence." And I mentioned a good thing to look at is definitely character. So a simple annotation can be one sentence. In this case, Macbeth is worried about the consequences. He doesn't want to think. So he doesn't want to think about the bad things that'll happen. So really simple and straightforward. If we keep going down here, we can see, but in these cases, we still have judgment here, that we but teach bloody instructions which, being taught, return to plague the inventor. So another character and a little bit of a literary device, the idea that Macbeth knows there are consequences and karma. What goes around comes around. So again, looking at something simple that I'd mentioned earlier, character. Just keep talking about character. We've got another annotation right here. He's here in double trust. We got a little bit of a conflict, which was the second thing I mentioned that you should be annotating for and writing about. That Macbeth knows Duncan trusts him, which gives him an opportunity for the murder. So he's got a little bit of internal conflict with himself and some external conflict with King Duncan. The next part here is a longer passage where we're mentioning, besides, this Duncan hath borne his faculties so meek, hath been so clear in his great office, that his virtues will plead like angels, trumpet tongued against the deep damnation of his taking off. Thankfully, this is not a speaking test, so I'm good to go. But again, we've got a little bit of conflict here where Macbeth is mentioning that Duncan has been a really great king. And there's also some imagery of angels crying and trumpeting at his death. And maybe there is a theme of what it means to be a good king. And lastly, in the interest of time, I've got one more conflict that simply says, Macbeth admits that the only reason he has to kill King Duncan is ultimately his ambition. So overall, I've got about 5 or 6 annotations. You can probably do more, but in the interest of time, I didn't really want to write every possible annotation. But again, take 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes if you have enough class time to really go over and understand and annotate the passage. Now, when it comes down to writing, I'm not going to write it in full, step by step, because you saw that in the other video. But what I will show is what a good final product will look like. And this is not it. One thing that most students do when they write is they write one giant paragraph. Now, if you're a teacher looking at this, can you figure out where one idea ends and the other begins? No, it's almost impossible. You cannot make it difficult for your teacher to figure out what it is you're writing about and where everything is. So never, ever, ever, ever write one giant paragraph for passage analysis. Instead, what you should do is break it up. Now, look, I know where the first idea is, second, third, fourth. Your teacher can easily find this. And notice there's 2 other things I did. Firstly, your first idea, which is character. Secondly, your second idea, which is conflict. Thirdly, setting and theme. And then lastly, we've got literary devices. And notice as well, when you're writing in class, do whatever you can. In this case, I underlined what it is you're writing about, what connection you're making. Make it as easy as possible for your teacher to go through and understand what it is we're writing. So I'll go over a couple paragraphs here. Firstly, this paragraph demonstrates character in psychological setting by revealing Macbeth's deep moral hesitation and guilt. Again, I told you first sentence, introduce the topic. This is shown in the text when Macbeth says, if it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly, which was one of the annotations I had. So again, take your annotation, sentence 2, simply write down the direct quote. And lastly, start with a nice phrase like, this is important. You notice I start, this is important. And even down here, this is important. This lets the teacher know you're going into the analysis. This is important because it shows he understands the gravity of his actions. He's not driven by ambition. He's aware of the moral and political consequences. The repetition of done shows his anxiety and desire to finish the murder before his conscience catches up, giving us insight into his tortured state of mind. So again, in the first annotation, I kind of mentioned that he wanted the murder to be done quickly. So here I just expanded on those ideas. And I'll go over the conflict one. I'll leave the rest here. You can read them and pause at any time. But if you read it in full, secondly, this passage demonstrates conflict by highlighting the tension between Macbeth's ambition and his moral integrity. This is shown in the text when he admits, I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which o'erleaps itself and falls on the other. This is important because it captures his internal struggle. He wants the crown, but knows his ambition is dangerous and self-destructive. His ambition is uncontrollable and that ultimately leads to failure, foreshadowing his tragic downfall. So again, really simple 4 or 5 sentences. Again, you could read the third and the last one if you want. And one thing I also did here, obviously you can't do this, but notice I just highlighted everything and look how easy it is. Topic, sentence, evidence, analysis. Topic, sentence, evidence, analysis. Topic, evidence, analysis, TE analysis. TEA right there. So make it really simple, ultimately, for your teacher to figure out by using the structure I showed in that first video. So there you have it. Passage analysis breakdown, what it should look like at the end, and how you can get there with your annotation. And if you want any other help in high school English, just simply leave a comment down below. I'll make the video. And speaking of videos, you can watch this random video that YouTube thinks will help you in high school English. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.